Yes, yes, yes. Welcome to another episode of Ideas Have Consequences with me, Larry Alex Taunton. And yes, 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 yes. I watched the election returns and I was anxious that they were going to try to steal it. And I became especially anxious when Barack Obama tweeted this. It took several days to count every ballot in 2020, and it's likely we won't know the outcome tonight either. I thought this SOB is trying to set up the steal. He is trying to set up the steal. That's what he's doing. Why would a president, a former president, be tweeting something like that? To me, that's election interference. Why would he do it? Well, of course, the reason he was doing it was to give the impression that it was closer than it was in order to discourage people from voting, to try to set up some kind of steal. But it didn't work. Just like we said in the previous episode, Kamala's Hail Mary to try to complete a pass by saying, he's Hitler, he's Hitler, he's Hitler. It didn't work. It didn't work. Ladies and gentlemen, we did it. The American people, you did it. You deserve, that is, if you voted for Donald Trump, you deserve to take a bow. You deserve to crack open an ice cold beer and sit on your porch, a glass of sweet tea, or whatever it is that you like. You deserve it. We fought for our country and we won. For 4 years, we've been fighting because we knew what they did in 2020. And we knew that they were going to try to do it again this time. But in this case, it was too big to rig. We couldn't predict what the full turnout was going to be, but the American people turned out. My mother-in-law, who is in her 80s, she's 83 years old. She took her brother, who's in a nursing home. She went and she picked him up. She wheeled him out into a wheelchair, got him into a car, got him down to the polling station, got him to vote, put him back in the car, took him back, put him back in the wheelchair, took him back into his assisted living home. I mean, these were the kinds of things that Americans were doing. And they were doing it because they love their country. They were doing it in an effort to save their country. So there's a lot that I really want us to talk about. And let me say this at the very beginning. There's a lot that my country has done in the last 4 years that I am not proud of. I am not proud of the transing of children. I am not proud of, drag queen story hour with children. I am not proud of the annihilation of the unborn, of the mutilation of children. I'm not proud of a corrupt war in Ukraine. What in the world are we doing there? Ukraine is every bit as corrupt as Russia is, as I pointed out before, and we may be the worst party in all of it because our goals here in this war are nefarious. I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud of the fact that we've been pushing a globalist agenda, that we've annihilated our borders. I'm not proud of the president that we have had for the last 4 years who is on the take. He is on the take. I'm not proud of the vice president who is an idiot. I'm not proud of Democrats who hate this country. I'm not proud of any of that. But and I would be, as a Christian who understands the doctrine of total depravity, both because I've seen it in myself and in others, I'm the last person that you're going to hear the phrase, my faith in humanity has been restored, and mean it. But today, last night, I was proud of the American people. I was proud of an American people who said, enough is enough. We want our country back. We want it back. I was proud to be an American. Even as I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm having a hard time speaking because I'm genuinely choked up with emotion. I am reporting to you today from Mexico City. right here behind me. You can't see it. I tried doing it with this, black sheer up, but the problem is that all you do is get glare and you just see the rest of the room, and it's awful. So it's too bad because Mexico City at night is worth seeing. But it's so interesting to me because here I am in a country and in a city where Donald Trump is not popular. And part of that is because our media, our major media, influences them in a big way. And also because, and I get it, a lot of Mexican people, a lot of Mexican families have relatives in the US. And the idea of being able to go back and forth easily really appeals to them. And the more urbane Mexicans here in Mexico City, people who have no desire to go to the United States or certainly not to move there, they are a people who feel very sorry for the poor. And they think, America's being cruel to them by not letting them into the country. But I want to say this. I don't care what other countries think about our president. I don't care what they think about our president. I care what the American people think about the president. And you know what? The left, I have noticed this for a very long time, traveling the way I do and engaging with the ball busting Manhattanite feminists as well as the beta males on the left. They have always had a Woody Allen like love affair with Europe. They want to be like Europe. They see Europe as sophisticated, urbane, as what America isn't. It's why they don't like red states. They look at red states. I argue that this is mostly a sociological break. It's ideological, but it's also sociological, meaning whatever it is that red states believe in, they're going to believe the opposite. If tomorrow red staters were all into the transing of children, they're going to be the ones saying, hey, this is Joseph Mengele-like experimentation on kids, meaning they don't want any association with you because they think they're better than you. This is who these people are. This is the way they think. And they want to be admired by Europeans. They want to go and clink their champagne glasses. This is tea, by the way. They want to go and clink their champagne glasses along the Champs-Elysees. They want to go and have dinner in the exclusive restaurants of Mayfair. They want to be seen as sophisticated. And as such, when a Donald Trump comes along and he runs as a Republican, okay, well, they can tolerate that. But he runs as a champion of the people, the champion of populace. He's the populist candidate. He's the representative of the hairy unwashed. This is the way they see themselves. You see, they've always been more concerned about the way America is perceived in Paris and in London and in Berlin and in Madrid. They're far more worried about those things. I want to be clear on this. I don't care what the rest of the world thinks about Donald Trump. And I was just here talking about Mexico. Here I am in Mexico. Mexicans don't care what I think of their president either, and for good reason. For good reason. So that's something that I think is just absolutely awesome, that the American people stood up and said, we're not buying into your nonsense. We're not going to believe the crap you have been pushing and selling to us for the last several years. So I'm really, really proud to be an American this day. And I'm so proud of the American people. And I hope that we really take advantage of this opportunity. This election is about four things. It's about four things. Or rather, this election was about four things. The first is leftist arrogance. The left has behaved with astonishing arrogance. So, I mean, they've always been arrogant, but they behaved with astonishing arrogance for the last 4 years. And they have believed, and it seemed like they might get away with it because they did it in 2020, that they can lock you down. They can have vaccine, passport mandates. They can tell you that you're going to eat bugs and you're not going to get beef. They can tell you that they're going to tax your internal combustion engine, and you're going to have to drive a smart car and live in a 15-minute city. They can take the money from FEMA and send it overseas, or they can use it to relocate people that they're actively bringing in to replace you. They could open your borders. They could start a war, take us to the brink of nuclear war with another nuclear power. They can do insider trading. They can take money under the table, as Biden clearly has done. They can speak to you and call you garbage. They can call you deplorables. They can call you whatever they want. They were sure that they could do all of that, and that there would never be a consequence for it. They were sure there would never be any consequence for it, that they would just keep moving along and pushing the things that they're doing. This was brought about, this red wave was brought about by leftist arrogance. By leftist arrogance. And, at various times from 2020 until now, I've thought to myself, they must know something the rest of us don't know. Because why would you do this? Why would you treat the electorate with such utter disdain? I mean, would you pretend? Wouldn't you pretend that you actually cared about them? Wouldn't you do more than send, $700 to people who've suffered from hurricane damage? Wouldn't you do something more to try to put a window front on what's actually going on behind the scenes, your corrupt operations, but you try to put a window front out front. It at least looked like you cared about the American people, that looked like you loved America, that looked like you really, really were trying to do your job for the American people. They weren't even trying anymore. They were just expressing their outright contempt for you at every opportunity. And so is the media, their propaganda arm. That is to say, the what we now call legacy media, formerly mainstream media. They were doing the same thing. They were sure that they could peddle their garbage and that they would get away with it, that there would be no consequence. So one of the things that's been most fun, if you're not from the United States, you're not a college football fan, this requires a little bit of background from you. But I remember I was at a pretty low point in my life, and I was looking for something, anything to cheer me up. And it came in the form of my favorite team, favorite football team, the Alabama Crimson Tide, on what we now refer to as 2nd and 26. When the Chiefs looked down and it looked like we weren't going to win the national title, Tua Tagovailoa, now the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, backs up and launches a perfect deep ball, perfect pass to Devontae Smith, and Alabama wins a walk-off national title. For that night and the next day, I was so thrilled by that. It's a football game, should matter, but it did matter. I really, really enjoyed it. And the next day, I had some, and for days to come, I enjoyed watching the replays. I enjoyed listening to the sports radio shows. I enjoyed reading the newspapers. I enjoyed listening to the commentary and the various versions of that event. It was just wonderful. It was cool. Well, that's what I'm feeling right now, but to the 10th power, because of course it doesn't involve a football team. It involves my country. It involves the future for my children and for my grandchildren. This fight is by no means over, ladies and gentlemen. But evil wasn't defeated in this presidential election. Not finally, not absolutely. That won't happen until the Lord returns. But brother, it took a serious setback yesterday. It took a very serious setback. And that to me is exciting. And it's exciting what the possibilities are. Excuse me. I don't know. It's like I had a grain of sand in my mouth. It's very exciting to me what the future holds for us and what the potential is of what we might be able to do in genuinely uniting this country and restoring it to genuine greatness. But let me say this, America's greatness is in direct proportion to her virtue. If we're not virtuous, we're not great. If we're virtuous, we are great. And America must become virtuous again. I feel like we've made a a promise to the Lord here that if he'll save us out, if he'll save us, bail us out here, if he'll give us that 2nd and 26 touchdown pass at the end of the game, we won't let him down. And I hope that that is what is ahead of us. But the first thing here that this election was about was leftist arrogance. They paid for it. There was a consequence. Thank you for doing that. They deserved it. The second thing that this election was about is Elon Musk. Other than the Lord, the person that Donald Trump owes more than any other individual is Elon Musk. And that is because this presidential timeline goes something like this. It's Babylon Bee tells, funny political jokes. Elon Musk likes funny political jokes. Twitter suspends Babylon Bee. Hence, there are no more funny political jokes. Elon Musk is big mad. Elon Musk buys Twitter. Elon Musk restores Babylon Bee and funny political jokes. And with it, he saves free speech in America. And Democrats lose. I mean, that really is the timeline of what happened here. And it's really quite incredible because there's a kind of radicalizing, and I shrink from using that because it makes it sound like he's a suicide bomber. That isn't at all what I mean. But Musk, as recently as last year, I think was trying to at least give the impression that he was in the middle of the road. He wasn't taking either side. He was going to be very nice to either side. But then he realized what they were doing, and he said this on Twitter, that his baby is Tesla. He loves Tesla. That is, in his words, it's his baby. And that they were trying to bankrupt him. They're trying to do him harm. Then there's what has happened with his children. You can look that up. The transing of one of his children, which got him very, very upset. And then came the Twitter files and the revelation as to how deeply corrupt our government was. And Elon Musk began moving. I know he says he didn't move, but he did move. Elon Musk went from being, there's a very funny meme out there that says, me voting in 2016, and it shows like a very handsome, Mel Gibson from a movie like where he's just, What Women Want or something. And then the next one says me in 2020, and it's a picture of Mel Gibson in a scene from, what's the movie Braveheart, where his face is painted and he's shouting. And then the final one says me voting in 2024. And it's Mel Gibson in The Patriot. And as the flag is up and he's covered in blood, he's on the chart. That has been Musk. Musk has moved. That has happened. And he's been, maybe instead of saying radicalized, he's been red-pilled. And he's been red-pilled in a very big way. And the fact of the matter is, I don't believe Donald Trump wins the presidency if Elon Musk did not do what Elon Musk did. And it all started with the Babylon Bee. Just a guy who said, look, I want to see the funny jokes. The funny jokes aren't there anymore. What happened? Why are they not there? What? They've been suspended. What for? For telling funny jokes? You can't tell funny jokes anymore? Well, I think I'll buy Twitter. And by golly, I think I'll restore free speech. I mean, that's what happened with him. And he saw how unfair it was, the way that lawfare was being used against Donald Trump. So him saving free speech, you got to bear in mind that all that the American people had really was, legacy media for the most part. I mean, you can listen to individual podcasts and things of that nature, but you didn't have an actual platform where you could engage with each other in such numbers and get so much information. Some of it false, some of it trimming. That's just the nature, the flow of information. In purchasing Twitter, he made that happen because it was no longer there over on Facebook. They were suppressing people over there. Same thing. Instagram is not quite the same kind of platform, but suppressing people there too. YouTube. I mean, this show experiences that with every episode. What he did with Twitter is absolutely incredible, and it made a difference in this election. Again, I don't think that Donald Trump wins without Elon Musk doing that. And by the way, I was thinking of historical examples of individuals who were radicalized. And you see, Democrats are so full of hate, at least many of these people are. They're so utterly full of hate that it never dawns on them that their hate has a way of pushing people who are otherwise kind of on the sidelines, a little disengaged. But by doing what they do, it has a way of bringing those people into the fight with passion. I mean, we were just talking about Braveheart. I mean, that's kind of the theme, isn't it? That here's a man who, William Wallace, who wants to stay out of it, and then they murder his fiancee. And the next thing you know, he's going around and, he's burning down English cities. I mean, there's something real in that does happen. And I was thinking of historical figures, Queen Boadicea, which for some strange reason about the last decade, they start calling her Boudica. But for centuries, she was known as Queen Boadicea. She's dead. She can't object to whatever it is that we call her. But she was a Iceni queen, that is to say, a Celtic queen during the Roman occupation of Britain. And some drunken Roman soldiers, raped her daughters. And the next thing you know, she has put together a ravenous army that destroys, I don't know, 2 or 3 Roman legions. I mean, they radicalized her. They had so abused her and her family that it radicalized her. These are things that really happen. And we would do well, by the way, as Americans to be very aware of this. I think of Martin Luther. Martin Luther, if you look at his early writings after he posted the 95 Theses, he wasn't nearly so pugnacious as he later became. But after the Leipzig Disputation in 1519, he nailed the 95 Theses on the church door. 1517, and in 1590, he comes to this debate with a guy named Johann Eck, with the intention of really seriously laying out his objections, because he was naive enough to believe at this point, when I point them to scripture, they're going to go, oh, wow, we had no idea that the Bible was, that there were some mistranslations, that we blew it here and we made some stuff up there. He didn't know that he really was naive enough to think they were going to go, well, that's very interesting. Let's have a good conversation about that. That was never the intention. They just immediately labeled him a heretic. And having been labeled a heretic, which meant he could be burned at the stake, Luther decided, I got nothing to lose anymore. I got nothing to lose anymore. And he said, you know what? Instead of just telling you what I think about indulgences, I want to tell you what I think about everything. And he did. And Elon Musk has been likewise radicalized. I mean, as recent as just a couple of days ago, just before the election, he said that if Democrats win, they are going to shut Twitter down. Now, he put $44 billion into that. And he said, and they're going to do everything they can to destroy me. So Elon Musk had everything on the line in this election. You see what they did? I mean, when they might have maybe sent a Barack Obama to have coffee with and to say, Elon, no, we're not going to do. They might have tried a different tactic with him. And you may say, well, I wouldn't want to listen to Barack Obama. As of a couple of years ago, Elon Musk liked Barack Obama, had voted for Barack Obama, thought he was a very sophisticated, gentlemanly sort. I think he's changed his mind on that now, but he did believe that at the time. And I thought, the way Democrats are treating him is so stupid. It is working against them because they are slowly pushing him into a corner where the only thing he can do is fight. So this election was about Elon Musk almost as much as it was about Donald Trump. The third thing that this election was about was Donald Trump. And his situation was very similar to that of Musk, meaning that he had been pushed into a corner where the only way he could save himself was to win the presidency. That was it. Now, the Justice Department has just today announced they're dropping all charges, all investigations, all the lawfare stuff is coming to an end. But it wouldn't have ended if he'd have lost. It wouldn't have ended if he didn't run. And the only way that he could save himself was to run and to win. He had to win. That was it. Again, a very foolish move on the part of Democrats. They decided they were so full of hate for the man. They were determined they were going to keep provoking him. And by the way, that's what earned him, at least according to some exit polls, much of the black vote by men voting for him, because many of them feel that the law is tilted against them in much the same way. And they look at Trump and they go, he's one of us. He's one of us. We've had that happen to us. Yes, we understand. We look at that. The system is rigged. It is a two-tier system. So there were a lot, it wasn't just Trump. There were others who were watching. And by the way, for me, in 2016, watching the bogus Russian narrative, immediately when that started coming up, I began feeling, I was kind of indifferent to Trump, but I began feeling a little protective of Trump when I began to see that they were making things up out of whole cloth, stuff that was just complete nonsense. I'm going, now hold on just a second. It's one thing for you to, to say that, he likes the ladies or something. It's quite another to say that he's guilty of treason. You have no evidence of that. You have zero evidence of that. And back then they were calling him, Hitler and stuff like that too, which again, I would looked at it and I thought, this is crazy. But Donald Trump, what he did here is incredible. And I have to say this, and I say it somewhat tongue in cheek. Here's a guy who went from being a McDonald's, well, first he went from being a felon to a McDonald's fries chef, to a garbage truck employee, all the way to being president-elect. And he did it all within about 2 weeks. I mean, is that the American dream? People, don't give up on your dreams. You can get there. You see what he did all the way from being a felon, the fry cook, and the garbage truck driver, all the way to president-elect. It's been pretty funny. Trump has run a brilliant campaign. It's been so clever. And you watch what Democrats have done. It's just been Hitler, 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 fascist, 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 Nazi, 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 while they continue to work behind the scenes to rig the outcome of the election. And by the way, they do it with more than just ballot harvesting. They do it with things like what they were doing with the media, trying to give the impression that it was pointless for you to go and vote. A friend of mine texted me from Europe to say they were doing the same thing there. They were telling everybody that, that it was going to be super, super close. Of course, it wasn't. We saw the shenanigans that were going on in Iowa. We saw the shenanigans that are going on in Maricopa County and Arizona. They were doing lots of different things. And by the way, I think one of the ways they've done it is with the electoral vote. I think they have suppressed actual population numbers in red states in order to swell the electoral college numbers for their own blue states, while red states remain fairly small. I think the state of Alabama, my own state, has been at 9 forever. And I assure you, the state is much larger population-wise than it once was. We sure are having an awful lot of people moving in to the state from other states, and generally, by the way, from blue states. This is arguably the greatest political comeback in history. Certainly is of modern times. I would have to think hard on historical figures, but I can't think of one that had a political. I'm not going to say there isn't one. I'm just, as I am sitting here, working it over in my head, I can't think of anybody who had this kind of political comeback. And we haven't even mentioned assassination attempts yet. So there's been that kind of extraordinary comeback on the part of Donald Trump. And I also have to say this about Trump. There may be things that you don't like about him, but the guy's energy is incredible. To be as old as he is and have the energy that he has is incredible. Second thing is that he genuinely likes people. He don't like all people. He don't like Nancy Pelosi and some others. People that he tends to not like tend to be people that I don't like. But the guy has incredible energy. And I think the fact that he does like people, that really was the secret sauce of what he did at McDonald's. I haven't really heard people saying it. They put more on, other aspects of that he did it and he's trolling Kamala, which of course he was. But I think what made it all work was that Trump standing in a window, waving at people and chatting with people who pulled up. He's enjoying himself. It was obvious that he was enjoying himself. And I think the American people identify with Donald Trump because they know themselves to be imperfect and they see his imperfections. It makes him relatable. Second thing is that with Donald Trump, what you see is what you get. I think Americans like that. They're sick of politicians with whom there's no transparency and always lying to you. And the third thing is he loves America. That comes across as genuine. And most Americans do love their country. I'm sorry, Democrats. That's not a winning strategy. Burning flags, refusing to let the governor of South Dakota have a huge celebration on July the 4th at Mount Rushmore, doing things of that nature where it's clear you hate this country, sending billions of dollars overseas because you didn't care about the American people. You weren't seeking to improve infrastructure. You weren't seeking to improve their lives. I mean, when it comes to it, at the end of the day, what I want in my politician is I want him to have a single driving mission that he gets up each day and he says to himself, so he asks himself, what can I do this day to improve the lives of American citizens? And American citizens feel that they've been utterly neglected, utterly left behind. And they have been. They have been. And that brings me to the fourth point, which is the American people. The American people are a big, big part of this story. And they're the biggest part of the story because the American people spoke. They said enough is enough. And I'm proud to say that Gen Z, my generation, maybe the most devil-may-care generation, a generation that is more like their grandparents, the so-called greatest generation, the World War II generation, that Gen Zers like me admired. We loved and admired the greatest generation. But baby boomers, the parents of most Gen Zers, baby boomers sought to destroy what they had inherited from that World War II generation. So Gen Zers, interestingly enough, Gen Zers aren't that much like baby boomers. Are very different from them, and they're a lot more like their grandparents. And it was Gen Zers who entered the chat in a big way yesterday and said, enough is enough. And they came in in huge numbers, and they said, like Dee Snider, Twisted Sister, we're not going to take it anymore. We're not going to take it anymore. And to me, that's just wonderful. It's wonderful because it shows civic pride and it shows that people are ready to do something. They're ready to mobilize. And I hope it doesn't end there. I hope now that people don't, sit on their hands and say, well, okay, now we can go back to watching TV. We don't need to worry about it because we will be in this kind of shape or worse in 2028 if we don't make hay, if we don't use these next 4 years wisely. And I hope very much that we do. But I'm so proud of the American people who spoke and they acted. And by the way, a lot of young men, the data is showing that a lot of young men went for Trump. I think a lot of young men are very sick and tired of the milquetoast beta male types that have been pushed on them. They have a desire to be men. They have a desire to have purpose. And they don't like what they're seeing coming out of Democrats. That is to say that many of them do not. Now, who are the biggest losers in this election? Well, the first one is Barack Obama. Barack Obama, leading up to the election, we saw it that he was clearly feeling some measure of desperation regarding this. Here he was, basically race baiting, shaming a bunch of black men, telling them how terrible they were if they didn't vote for Democrats. He uses the fake kind of, accent from the hood as if to seem to be one of them, which of course he isn't one of them. And he doesn't identify with them at all. And he doesn't care about them at all. But Barack Obama is a major loser here. He was hoping to get his fourth term because we all know that he was the one he was the puppeteer who was controlling what was going on with Joe Biden. He was the guy who was behind the scenes and a lot of that. We are very aware of that. I've talked about that in previous episodes of this show. He is the number one loser. Right there with him is Zelensky. Vladimir Zelensky is right there with him. And that is because I posted a funny little meme that shows a guy getting up out of his chair and, in a meeting in an office, and he goes and opens a window and he jumps out. And I said, this is Zelensky right now. Zelensky is a massive loser here, and that's because the billions are going to stop. America as your ATM machine is going to stop. Our support for that war is going to stop. Your boys are not going to be sent off to what is potentially a thermonuclear war. They're not going to be sent off to war when they might die in, some godless land that we eventually pull out of anyway, like say Afghanistan. Not going to happen. And Zelensky is a massive loser in this case. I would say globalists are massive losers here. The globalist agenda, these scumbags, their agenda took a massive hit, and they know it. They all know it. Globalists are on the run. I am now really looking forward to going to the World Economic Forum in January, which happens at about the same time that Trump is inaugurated, because I can't wait to hear all the moaning and all the pity parties, because these people are incredibly arrogant. And they were very sure that they now had, they just about had all the reins of power in Europe and in the United States. And the United States was the ATM machine to fund everything for them. And that's going to come to an end. So globalists, World Economic Forum types, WEF types, they have taken a massive hit. They are huge losers here. I'll also say that the perpetual political class, these are people who are massive losers. Maybe the thing I'm looking forward to most with Trump's administration is what Elon Musk does. It excites me, the thought that there is going to be a guy who's going to come in and is going to try to do to the United States government what he did to Twitter, that had thousands of employees, and he comes in and he gets rid of, what did he get rid of? 70, 80% of them, said, I don't need them anymore. And then he runs it with a few hundred guys is all that he needed. I don't know the actual percentage there, but the point is he greatly reduced it. He has been very focused on our national debt, and he's looking at the numbers, and he's looking at all these pointless government agencies and where all the money is going. And it's going to a kind of, it's a form of patronage. It's a way of buying votes. It's a gravy train, a governmental gravy train. There have been people, scumbags, who have been sucking on the rear teat of American taxpayers for decades now. And I'm pretty excited to see what Elon Musk does when he begins to slash away at all of these pointless agencies and begins to trim government down. That could be a pretty exciting thing to watch. But those people, the perpetual government class, those people suffered a massive setback. I'll say the America haters suffered a huge setback. America, Trump today announced that we're going to have a massive 250th celebration of America. It's going to be a celebration of this great country. You're going to see a level of patriotism in this country that we've not seen since I was a kid, 1776. Maybe that year, the bicentennial was a blowout. I remember it. I was 9, and I just remember red, white, and blue everywhere, and you had all the Schoolhouse Rock stuff and all these celebrations in the public school that put emphasis on the importance of our history. And I'd say the first Gulf War, there was a lot of patriotism then, and also right after 9/11. But we certainly haven't seen anything like that since 9/11. And so and that's been because there are those from the top pushing down saying, no, you can't do that. Don't want you to do that. To fly your flag is, somehow makes you a fascist or something. That's the way they want to make you feel. And that's because it's unacceptable in their globalist paradigm. They don't want that. Well, this is going to be a move in the other direction, and I see that as a very, very positive thing. And let me say this, by the way, I don't mix my faith with my patriotism, meaning I know that heaven will not be lined with American flags, but I believe you should be proud of your own country. I respect people who love their own countries. And I don't mean love it good or bad. I don't mean in the sense that if you're a German in 1933 Germany, that you love everything that your country is doing, but rather you have a desire to see what is best for it, and you have a desire to see evil removed from it. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a patriot, for wanting to eliminate, someone like an Adolf Hitler because he loved his country. He loved his country. He was a Christian, but he was also a patriotic German. I respect people who love their own countries. You should love your own country. Makes me feel, I remember when Giorgia Meloni was running for president of Italy. One of her speeches where she says, I'm a woman, I'm an Italian, I'm a mother, and I'm a Christian." I wanted to stand up and cheer for her. It made me feel like I was an Italian. I thought, I love what she had to say, and I love that she did it unashamedly. She was very proud to be an Italian, and she says, "You guys won't shame me for being one. I love my country. You should love your country." So the anti-America crowd has really taken a hit. The next group of people, many of them emanating from where I sit right now, illegals, illegal aliens. A lot of the people in the neighborhood where I am now, they have no interest in going to the United States because they're successful. They're doing quite well. But the point is, there are a lot of people who are passing through this country from Ecuador. They're coming through here from Colombia, from Brazil, from Venezuela, from Chile, from Peru, all over the place. And they're passing through here. And which is, by the way, which is why I'm here. I'm here because I'm very interested to see how this election was going to affect immigration, regardless of who was declared the winner. I was very interested to see what was going to happen. Was there going to be a mad dash to the border if Trump won? I don't know yet because I just got here tonight. It's fairly late here. It says past 10 p.m. But I intend to take a look around and see. But I will promise you that right now, if you're trying to go to the United States, they're trying to get there before Trump is inaugurated. Other losers, we could probably collectively refer to them as criminals. People like Fauci, people like General Milley. Milley said, as if to get the sympathy of the American people, that he feared he would face a court martial if Trump were elected. Well, you should face a court martial. You're guilty of treason. You should face a court martial. And there's a variety of figures who are like this who I believe should be prosecuted. Now, Trump has said something here that I can appreciate, but I would be curious to drill down into it a little bit to know what he means, because there are those Republicans who are saying, now we're going to arrest this person and that person. We're going to get those people. And Trump has rightly said, well, now, hold on. I'm not running a campaign of revenge. Revenge is bad government policy. That's not what we want. We're not out for revenge. We don't want to behave like Democrats do. We don't want to do lawfare. We do not want to conduct ourselves as though we hate humanity. We don't want to become them, in other words. Revenge is terrible government policy. However, justice is a very different matter, and every just government should be seeking justice. Justice matters, and it matters because If you don't prosecute violators of the law, and I'm talking, egregious violations of the law, then what you do is you are essentially making a mockery of the law and you are incentivizing criminal behavior. There needs to be severe penalties for people who are rigging elections, which they were doing. There need to be severe penalties for what was going on with the vaccines and the lockdowns. There needs to be severe penalties for those who were in government agencies that were colluding with big tech, that were colluding with legacy media, that were colluding with major media in order to suppress free speech. There needs to be consequences for that. And you see, because if there isn't, then what it says to those people is we can do whatever we want and get away with it. There needs to be consequences for that. And again, I'm not talking about revenge. I'm talking about justice for people who violated the law. Nancy Pelosi's inside, stock trading. I mean, there needs to be consequences for this kind of behavior. Who's the biggest winner? Well, how about a fun one first? The Bidens. I could just picture them hugging and smiling after voting secretly for Trump and saying, and I heard Jill saying to Joe, "You did it, Joe. You did it, Joe." I mean, he has to be feeling pretty good today because Kamala Harris, I don't know if you saw this video that was a map showing which counties in which states where Kamala Harris outperformed Joe Biden, and there were zero. Meaning she got wiped out. She got obliterated. And Biden has to be feeling pretty good about that. You guys knocked me off and you went for it with her. And guess what? Look at how it turned out. I do not think that Joe and Jill Biden wanted to see her win. I don't think they did. I think they kind of sort of played along, but not especially. And since I've made mention of Jill Biden, do you remember how she suddenly, back in the summer, she was everywhere? She was everywhere because it was like she was a regent. And then suddenly she was nowhere. And that was because Kamala Harris, became the nominee. Kamala Harris is about to disappear as well. She tried to, and, delaying wasn't until tonight that she finally gave a concession speech, which by and large I thought was pretty good. She spoke of a peaceful transition. She spoke of honoring, the voters. She spoke of respecting the Constitution. The degree to which she was sincere, I don't know, but I thought that she said the right things. But she's about to become utterly irrelevant. And not only that, she's about to become the joke of both sides. So while Democrats were running interference for quite a while, now that she's lost, she will become the scapegoat, and they are going to drag her across concrete on SNL and, every other place. She is about to become the butt of every kind of joke. But anyway, the Bidens are huge winners. The biggest winner in all of this at a personal level anyway, corporately speaking, the biggest winner is the American people. But at an individual level, it has to be Trump. It has to be Trump because Trump saved his own neck. He saved his own neck. He had only one path to saving himself from lawfare. He had only one path, and that was to win re-election. That was the only way, and he did it. That's pretty incredible. The second biggest winner, I think, at a personal level, is Elon Musk, for fairly similar reasons. As we just said before, that Democrats were, going to try to destroy him, and they certainly were. That was something that they definitely had in mind. Now, let me say what this election was not about, at least not in the way that Democrats thought that it would. Well, it turns out the American people aren't as excited about killing and mutilating children as Democrats thought they were. It seems that was not the issue that they believed was really going to motivate people to go to the polls, that women were going to be so motivated because they wanted to abort, they wanted to kill their children. Turns out that wasn't the case at all. Democrats were riding the wrong, because they're anti-human and they hate children. They just assume that's what evil people do. They assume everyone else is just like them. They assume that everyone has the same kind of warped thinking that they do. And it turns out that that wasn't it. They seem to think that people would be motivated by some sort of trans rights agenda. Turns out that the American people do not give a flip about that agenda, and for good reason. It's not a real right. It's not a real thing. Turns out the American people aren't into mutilating little boys and girls. So what they thought the election was going to be about, it definitely was not about. So how did all this happen? What happened, in my opinion, because many Americans were praying. I believe that. I believe that in my bones, to the marrow of my bones, that many Americans were praying. Many people, I recognize that many people who vote for Donald Trump are not necessarily themselves, Christians or even believers in God. But there are many people who did vote for him who are Christians, who do believe in God. And many of those people have been praying. And I believe that Donald Trump, for all of the genius of his campaign and Elon Musk's contribution and all the things that happened, the fact of the matter is, I just don't believe it happens at all if the Lord doesn't deem it such. And I think it's because God's people petitioned him to spare America from wrath. I know that I did every day. Urge many of you to do the same. And I was just full of such joy. It's so funny because that's the Kamala Harris. She began her campaign of joy. I mean, joyless is what those people are. But I had such a feeling of joy when in the wee hours, what was it, 1 a.m. or something, when they finally said what we could already tell was happening. They took a long time to announce what was going on in Pennsylvania and what was happening in Georgia and North Carolina and so forth. But they finally said, Trump is president of the United States. And began seeing, the lefty media outlets begin acknowledging that, in fact, that was true, that was the case. This verse came to mind. It's Jonah chapter 3, verse 10. When God saw what they did, how they turned from their evil way, God relented of the disaster that he has said he would do to them, and he did not. Isn't that wonderful? Our God is a God of mercy, incredibly merciful. And what he has shown the American people here, ladies and gentlemen, is incredible mercy. I do hope that Donald Trump will recognize this. I hope he will recognize that God spared him. I hope the American people will recognize that God has spared them, that he has stayed his hand from disaster for this country. America, as we know it, would be gone. The death toll for the unborn would just continue to skyrocket. You would see the introduction and on a much larger scale of euthanasia. You'd see, the continued transing of children. You would see a crime going. You'd see all kinds of, not just evil, but like embracing the satanic was already taking hold in this country. And I think God answered prayer. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, that it's really, really important. Romans chapter 1 is a blueprint. It shows you what happens to a society when people suppress belief in God. And it says once they do that, this is the direction they will inevitably go. And it's a series of things where it says that God gave them up, God gave them up, God gave them up 3 times. But eventually the third time says he gave them up to a debased mind. And it says that such people ought to die. But you know what starts it? A failure to give thanks to God. Thanklessness is the beginning of that terrible downward spiral into baseness, into depravity. It's thanklessness. It's it's an unwillingness to acknowledge that the good things you have in your life, they're not just of your own doing. It could be your health. It could be your lack of health. I've given thanks for that before in my life because of the things I learned from it, the things that it taught me, your children, your home, your food, your job, even things in your life that you don't like that are maybe there for a purpose. We as a people ought to be giving thanks to God. Thanksgiving is coming up. What a Thanksgiving this should be. What a wonderful Thanksgiving this should be. But I feel that the Lord has given us a second chance here and said, okay, you've asked me not to, I won't. But now it's on you. I want to see what you do. And ladies and gentlemen, I think it's incredibly important that we as a people, what is it that Jesus says? I think it's in John chapter 4, verse 9, where Jesus says we must work while it is day, for night is coming. We must work while it is day, for night is coming. I think it's very, very important that we work while it is day, and that we take advantage of this. Over the course of the next 4 years, in addition to closing borders and stopping the endless wars and sending of money overseas to others rather than to the American people who are hardworking and fixing our economy and fixing our infrastructure, we have to fix the election process. We have to fix it. It is broken. It needs to be fixed. And you may say, well, it worked yesterday. It worked yesterday, I think, for several reasons that I don't want to get into here. Some of it has to do with poll watching, but it chiefly has to do with the fact that it was just overwhelming. We can't always count on that. I mean, this is the first time that a Republican president has won the popular vote since 2004. So I don't think we can always count on that. We have to fix that system. We have to make sure that illegals are not allowed to vote. We do need to deport a lot of people. I'm not sure what that process is going to look like or how it's going to be done. And we have to heal our nation. I come back to where I began, and that is that America's good is as good as it is virtuous. And without virtue, America's not great. It's just as simple as that. And that means we need to return to our spiritual roots. We need to return to the Lord. That's what we need to do. I'm sorry, I'm preaching today, but that's just the way I feel. We have to return to the Lord. We owe him that. We owe him that because he saved our bacon, but we also owe him that because he's our creator and because he demands it. And I, for one, hope that is the direction that we go. I hope Donald Trump doesn't just look and think, look what I've done. Nebuchadnezzar in Daniel chapter 4, I think, he walks out onto the roof of his palace and he looks out over the city of Babylon and he congratulates himself. He goes, look at what I've done. Look at what I've done with my own hands. And the next thing you know, God is judging him. God will judge us. He will judge you if you think that all that you have is of your own doing. You don't give thanks. If Donald Trump does not give thanks for the great things that the Lord has done in all of this, it's absolutely incredible what we've seen here. And I, for one, hope that this Thanksgiving, that we give a great thanks to the Lord, not just some vague deity, and that we seek to heal this country. And over the course of the next 4 years, this is when the real work begins. And we're going to start talking about that in future episodes. I'm going to show you a little bit of what's going on down here before I leave. But we'll start talking about J.D. Vance, and we'll start talking about what this government is going to look like and where this country is headed. But I believe that we have the chance to take it in a wonderful direction and to do what Donald Trump said he was going to do from day one, and that is make America great again. This has been another episode of Ideas Have Consequences with me, Larry Alex Taunton from Mexico City. I look forward to seeing you soon.